to Miss Martin Musings and another edition of Catholic Explaining. Prepare yourself, you're about to be Catholic explained. Lately, on these little Sunday discussions, I have been discussing the 7 deadly sins. Because why not? It's Sunday. Let's find out who the enemy is. And what I love about the 7 deadly sins is it doesn't necessarily have to be viewed in a religious context. It is universal. Universal. These are things that are not just sinful, but they really mess up your way of living, right? So if you live by greed, if you live by lust, if you live by sloth, if you live by pride, all of those things, you're just not going to have a very good or a fruitful life. But we have right here, let's see, Atomic Ranger has already chimed in. Avarice, the emotion that made Lex Luthor all powerful as an Orange Lantern. Yes, Lex Luthor is definitely guilty of avarice. Loads of fictional characters are. One of the ones that really comes to mind is Ebenezer Scrooge. And I've even seen Gollum. Gollum is an example of avarice. And the reason why these are considered deadly sins, because they lead to other things that are bad. They're never in isolation, and we're going to see this. So welcome everyone coming in or anyone that will be listening to the replay. Welcome, and please let me know about avarice and your experiences with it. Sometimes it is called greed, used interchangeably. I disagree with that. There's a big difference between avarice and greed. Greed is like avarice to the nth degree. And as we see here, the textbook dictionary definition is extreme greed for wealth or material gain. So greed is greed, and then extreme greed is where it just goes beyond reason. And when in doubt, that is always when things go badly, when you're doing it beyond reason. And remind me never to start a stream without having taken a sip of coffee. Though technically tea is always better for the voice. Yeah. I'm going to take a drink. Mea maxima culpa. Okay, there we are. Well, let's get more into greed. I think I'll put in a little banner in a bit. But please, as you all are coming in, please share with me greed. And everything you know about greed, or times you have been greedy. Maybe fictional characters that are greedy as well. Atomic Ranger 76 says, "Welp, I must have 1,500 action figures of all shades and sizes." But is that passion, which there's nothing wrong with that? Or is it something that you got ill-gotten? So to get the money to get those action figures, did you have to harm someone or unjustly take somebody's money? Or did you unjustly manipulate so that you could get those action figures? Let's see. And that's, I think, what we're going to go into when we get into the catechism parts. Because it is linked to envy. Why, yes, it is precious. It is linked to envy. All of these sins, all of these vices are linked to each other. They're usually not in isolation. And as we talked before, envy is the extreme version of wanting what someone else has. There's never a problem wanting what someone has. I look at my sister's washing machine and I really want it. It's one of those really awesome ones. But that doesn't mean that that's bad. Now, if I go and I steal it or manipulate or try to bankrupt my sister's family to get that washing machine, that's an issue. Tom Granger said, my dad paid for most of them. Don't. Well, there you go. It was a gift. It was a gift. No worries there. Chrysanthem's here. Hello, hello. Chrysanth just got out of church, so I'll listen on the ride home. Yay! So you get to have a catechism as you come home, all about envy and greed. Rather, greed, which is linked to envy, which is really avarice. Sometimes even in the catechism, it talks about it as greed. I really want to have words with whoever translated it into English. Let's see, what was the reading? I went to mass yesterday. The reading was being risen from the dead. So that wasn't anything to do with greed or avarice. There's lots of parables about it, like the dude who spent his whole life amassing wealth and built all these buildings just to have his wealth. The wealth just sat there. And then the Lord says, "Tonight you're going to die." What was all that worth? Nothing. All right. So it's linked to envy. The opposite virtue is charity. So if you're feeling avaricial or greedy, please use the opposite virtue. Give to charity, maybe, but charity is also a state of mind. It is very mistranslated in English. There's the charity refers to caritas, which is one of the forms of love. And so we're going to go to St. Thomas Aquinas, who was a lot smarter than I, and the Summa Theologica, where he says he defines charity as a virtue, the friendship of man for God, and the habit of charity extends not only to the love of God, so charity can also be love of God, caritas, but also love of our neighbor. So if we think of charity, we think of it as love of God, love of neighbor. If you don't believe in God, think of it as love of neighbor, or wanting something good for humanity in general. So you can assuage greed by literal charity, giving money. I remember when I got some money, never mind how. Oh, legitimately, I got money, but I just don't talk about my career too much online. The temptation was to just get all proud of myself, all that kind of stuff. So yes, I did give some of it to a charity. So sometimes I won't talk about what I give to my parish, but in general, it can be to a GoFundMe, maybe for someone that you know is sick, that it's a legitimate GoFundMe. It can be giving to money to good causes. Sometimes every now and then we've got some Carmelites, and I'll leave some money for the ladies and the gents. We have male ones as well, because they actually do very good work that most of us would not. Or when you go buy some food, drop it off at a food bank, or volunteer. Go volunteer, go visit the sick. Especially go visit someone you don't want to visit. Often that is one of the greatest ways of practicing charity. And usually that's how I do it, because whenever immediately I say to myself, I don't want to visit this person, I don't want to help this person, I'm like, now I have to. That's a terrible thing about being a Christian. So I should also maybe warn, beware if I'm ever nice to you or help you, it's probably because I was thinking of being mean to you. But those are good ways to practice charity, opposite of it. You can also share your talents. It's not a secret I'm a musician. So maybe I will do something for free, a certain situation, because you have to be careful about, in my line of work, doing something for free. An example of where I would do something for free is take my piano music and head over to a local retirement home or nursing home. Just play for the old people or singing for them. That's a way you can use your talent. If you have another talent, do it. Some people are really good with like gardening and handiwork. Go find someone in the neighborhood that needs it. Now we're going to dig into the catechism. As always, this gets a little bit deeper. This is 2536. The 10th commandment forbids greed. So what forbids greed or avarice? I'm judging you, the translators of the catechism. The 10th commandment. And the desire to amass earthly goods without limit. It forbids avarice arising from a passion for riches and their attendant power. Again, I'm judging the translation, but this is a good sentence. It forbids avarice arising from a passion for riches and their attendant power. So goods are not bad in of themselves. It is the passion that you have for these same goods and how passionate you are and to what lengths you will do so. Most importantly, it also forbids the desire to commit injustice by harming our neighbor in his temporal goods. This would also include trying to harm someone's reputation, especially in connection with a business or their livelihood, deliberately in order to harm them. I want to say that this is not the same as if you know somebody is doing shady business, if you know it's a fraud, if you see this person committing grave acts of injustice in the commission of the business and you bring that to light, that's not the same as deliberately lying, libeling, slandering for the purpose of hurting that person's business, usually in order to bring it to yourself. I want to make that clear. When the law says, "You shall not covet," these words mean that we should banish our desires for what does not belong to us. Aha, aha, aha. So we need to work to banish those desires that lead us to this. Our thirst for another's goods is immense, infinite, never quenched. Warning, it is immense, infinite, and never quenched. So you are basically eating poison every day, but it's your hands that's doing it. And it's a thirst that'll never be quenched because it is in itself so disordered and you will never arrive. Like sometimes I'll say to individuals, "What's your end game on this?" I just want to, be loved. I just want, I don't know, fame. It's like, what's your end game? And then when you get there, you're going to be happy. Probably not. And everyone's going to hate you. Thus it is written, "He who loves money never has money enough." True. True. Just look at Ebenezer Scrooge. "2537 of the Catechism. It is not a violation of this commandment to desire to obtain things that belong to one's neighbor, provided this is done by just means." That's a little bit what I was saying before. I want my sister's washing machine. There is nothing wrong with wanting it. It is how I go about it. For example, I want my sister's washing machine. So what should I do? I should look at my money, my budget, see what I have, see what my disposable income is, see what I can set aside, and then I go myself to Home Depot and buy it or some other place. I don't decide to burn down my sister's house and while running it and saving the washing machine. And that's just one example. It can also mean desiring someone else's fame, desiring someone else's beauty, though that's kind of linked to envy. But see, they're all cut from the same cloth, anyways. The key word is done by just means, and there's a difference between desire and the need to own, to grasp. right, well, now we're going to go to some place I found, knowledge dot whatever it is. I have cited my source here. How do you know? How can you recognize that perhaps you are engaging in avarice? What are the warning signs? Well, precious, here we go. 1. Overly self-centered behavior. Are you engaging in overly self-centered behavior? This also leads, of course, to tons of other kinds of sins, other kinds of acts of injustice against your neighbor. It can also just plain make you a jerk. But going along with our topic of today, it will make you greedy. It will make you an avaricial. Is it avaricial? Whatever it is, it's going to be bad. Avarice is bad. So if you're always thinking of yourself, if you're only thinking of your own gain, you just might be a person who has avarice. Envy, we've already talked about that. It's very much linked to envy. Do you find yourself being envious? And how much and how often? Because envy will lead to trying to get these things ill-gotten, unjust, and again, it will make you a jerk. Maybe I should say that about the 7 deadly sins, or how not to be a jerk. That should be the underlying catchphrase with it. No one likes people that do the 7 deadly sins. Lacking empathy. Or in other words, you might be a serial killer. But yes, lacking empathy. Do you care for your neighbor? Do you not care if you harm someone in what you get? Do you lack empathy? That's why charity is a remedy for these. It makes you do things for your neighbor. Never satisfied. Maybe I'm just like my mother. She's never satisfied. Why do we scream at each other? I try not to sing these things because I don't know if I'll get copyrighted. But yeah, never satisfied. Nothing will ever be enough. I get $10,000, I want $15,000. I got a house with 5 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms, I want a house with 5 bedrooms. Um, uh, Self-reflecting on myself, which with YouTube, I want to get to 1,000. Will I not be satisfied if I don't get to 1,000? Will I want 1,500? Then I won't be happy till I get 2,000. Then I won't be happy till I get 2,500. Now I get 5,000. Never satisfied. Never enough. Chris Ant says, taking notes. Don't be a jerk. Yes. Yeah, that sums up the gospel, doesn't it? Or a great deal of the Sermon on the Mount. I also like to sum up the gospel with God is not a jerk. That's leading back to sola scriptura and predestination, which as a Catholic I do not subscribe to. It goes down to God is not a jerk. God doesn't trick you. Never satisfied. Never satisfied. And maybe this is where Gollum might be a bad example because he's satisfied so long as he has the precious. But definitely Ebenezer Scrooge. Miserly behavior is also a characteristic. Manipulative. Ooh, see how these are connected? I love it. I love it. Yeah. How do you get these ill-gotten gains? You manipulate people. You manipulate people. You climb over people. You lie. You flatter. You do all of these things for your ill-gotten gains. Well, hello. It is from the future, and from the future plus an hour. Hello, Archer Colin. Always great to see you here. Always great to see you here. One of these days, I'm going to be able to be on Father's afternoon show. I have some contracts right now that have interfered with that, but we love our futuristic archer, reenactor, man who knows old English and is living the life I want to live, going around in Great Britain reenacting. That's awesome. You do not want to put a weapon in my hand. I'll just say that. I am way too clumsy. Way too clumsy. And also, I don't have the upper body strength to operate a bow and arrow. And even if I did, I cannot because I'm a musician and I've got to be very careful about repetitive movements. Because I was injured once because I wasn't careful. So, got to look after my piano fingers. Archer Collins says, I haven't even noticed the clocks had changed. Everything is automatic these days. Yes. The only clock that didn't change automatically for me was my stove clock. Now, we changed 2-3 weeks ago, which confused me until I was explained by my Norwegian sidekick that because y'all are up on a higher latitude, I'm still not sure what 2 weeks difference makes, but hey. And also, I was wondering why I overslept for mass. And I'm like, dang, it's like 9:30. I like to go to the early one. If I don't make it to the Saturday, I like to go to the early one because, oh my gosh, tip, 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, even 9:30, that's where you get the kids. Not that I have anything against kids, but yeah. Jesus loves the little children, just sometimes I'm not crazy about them. I like my quiet time. Yes, everything is automatic these days. Yeah, manipulative. Are you manipulative? Are you greedy, avarice? You know, you could probably even have avarice issues in reenacting. I've seen that in Civil War reenacting. My uniform is more authentic than your uniform. Your corset has like plastic in it. All sorts of stuff like that. Human nature is so petty. Present company accepted as well. Chrisanne says, not at my church. I'm the youngest there by multiple decades. Oh, well done. To be fair, I am currently in Florida. And yeah, I'm the youngest. Often. Well, because I'm in God's waiting room. It depends on where you are. Archer Collins says, definitely need to care for your hands, but upper body strength wise, we do have several archerettes. Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's possible. That's why I think I wanted to clarify that me personally, because, well, I not only do playing, but I do a lot of conducting, which is full body. Now, there are ways to train for that, and I'm aware of it. I just don't. I get a little bit of it in Pilates, and maybe I'll look into it. But yeah, women actually archery is the great equalizer in many ways. That and the gun doesn't matter how big your bow is or the strength behind it. It's the accuracy, etc. Yeah, manipulative. So, are you manipulative? You may be serial killer or just guilty of avarice. Archer Collins says, "Oh heck yes, the authenticity. Nah, there was a great sketch on Big Bang Theory where they go to a Ren fair and Sheldon downloads a pattern for authentic underwear." Yes, yes. Yes. I'll tell you what, though, there's a lot of really bad jokes about corsets. I'm almost an advocate of a return to the corset. Now, when corsets were misused, if you will, through vanity, ha, vanity. We're talking about sins here or things that can lead you to sin. I don't think vanity is one of the 7 deadly sins. But if you pull them too tight, yes, you can harm yourself. And that is a disordered view of beauty. All right. So manipulative. What other things might be signs that you're heading toward the dark path of avarice? You are into the short run in a bullet point form that doesn't sound right. It looks like into the short run. Yeah, you only think you don't think ahead. You think of short gains. I might disagree with the article a bit because often people that are guilty of avarice actually think well ahead. But I can understand the point where they're getting at the tendency toward avarice. You're always thinking, how can I get rich this way, this quickly? And they'll shift with the wind. These things are always bad for you. No limits. Yes. In general, most human beings, there's a line you never cross. You just don't cross for no reason whatsoever. Someone that is guilty of avarice will do so. And not only that, again, they'll know no limits, meaning nothing will be enough, nothing will be too high, and there will be no checks and balances on your behavior. My line is very clear. If you start acting against charity, meaning love of God, love of neighbor, if you start to act cruel, even if the other person is cruel to you, it doesn't matter because you can fight back smart. You can fight back fair. You can fight back in charity. There is no reason to respond in kind. But cruelty, never. Dishonesty, never. Social media does not help us in this. It encourages that kind of behavior. It encourages one-upmanship. It encourages being unkind. That's often rewarded. But no. In the end, you're gonna be the one that's gonna suffer because it will become an addiction. It will become an addiction. Archer Collins says, to be fair, being manipulative is not in of itself necessarily a bad thing. You have my interest. If you are low down on the power level, you may have to manipulate. Intent matters, I guess. Yes. hmm And not just intent, but the methods you use. Yes, you can sometimes manipulate, maybe manipulate is not the best of words, but place things favorable to yourself. Well, sometimes we talk about manipulating a pattern. That doesn't mean you're being sinful. You're working with the material. You're manipulating the playboard to put yourself at an advantageous situation. It's if you do so, yes, with intent and ill-gotten means and in a manner that harms somebody else. It's especially grave when you lie or I don't know. Here's a good example. You want to be the concert master and you're the second fiddle. You're a second chair. So hire someone to break the concert master's fingers. Boom, then you're the concert master. Yeah. Remember, these are also cautionary tales. These are things for us to continually examine within ourselves. Because I'm not saying that I'm not guilty of a lot of these. We all are, but it's working through it when you see yourself falling into these traps and then choosing the opposite virtue. Oh, look, it's Beauty and the Beast. That's left over from my previous presentation. So that is the end of this. We talked a little bit about the Catechism and the Summa Theologica. Where would we be without St. Thomas Aquinas sitting around and writing so much than I would ever write? 2537, I think, relates to what you said, Archer, provided it is done by just means. Yeah, just means. I guess another example would be if you're in the Olympics, you want to get a gold medal. You want to get the gold medal that the other dude won the last time. And so to do so, you take steroids, you dope up. Just means. Or nowadays, you start to identify differently and beat all the biological women. And what the key is, he who loves money. The quote is often misquoted from the Bible that the money is the root of all evil. No, it's the love of money, which is the root of all evil. Archer Collins says, without meaning to be rude, throughout history, female power tends to have been wielded via what may be considered manipulation, behind the scenes maneuvering and such. Not at all. I will never take offense. Never take offense at something like that, rather. I'll take offense at unjust points. There's a reason for that. Because women, we do not have physical strength. We cannot go and punch somebody in the face, so we punch them behind their back with lies and slanders. I'm not afraid to say that women are our own worst enemies. Sneaky like snakes. Women are very much guilty of this. We're also guilty of using our sexuality. If you know someone thinks with something that's not his brains, women will pick up on it, and maybe next time I'll just wear a tank top or something. Yes. Yeah, it's not rude at all. And unjustly, in the past, this is where it could be an issue. People took it too far, and it was rooted in sexism. Like, oh, women are like this. It's in women's nature. Nah, it's not in women's nature any more than it is anyone else. It's women dealing with original sin just like everyone else and using the tools at her disposal. Mm-hmm. Yep. Archicon says, what? You mean 95-pound soaking wet woman can't punch out a 300-pound trained fighter? Heresy. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Women can. A 95-pound woman can if she's manipulative. Meaning, if she's really, truly trained and very strategic, yes. But brute strength, no. No. It's just nature. It's just nature. And there are differences between men and women. Women tend to be very protective, very nest-like to protect our territory. We don't like other people encroaching upon it, which is why women are very, very defensive against other women. It's called the queen bee syndrome, where if you get a woman in a powerful position, she will very frequently not hire, not promote other women. She'll promote men because another woman will naturally be the competitor. And when they do hire a woman and they'll go, look, we've hired all these women, you'll notice that these women are in positions that will not be a threat to the woman. Oops, sorry, I was mistaking woman for women. Yeah. Authentic femininity has been under attack for a very, very long time. I believe it started in the 1960s, or rather, it hit its climax in the 1960s. You had people like Margaret Sanger who really got it going, and she was not just kind of anti-authentic femininity, she was also she was racist, horrible racist. She was also a eugenicist. Crescent says, or they hire women who are less competent so they don't pose a threat. Yes, you see, to Chrysanthulus, you see, we know each other. We know each other. Mm-hmm. Darn right we will. Thank goodness I'm not in a position for that. Gosh darn it. That would be horrible. I've been in positions of recommending before. You know what's funny, though? Now that I'm thinking about it, the person I really, really highly recommended was someone who was gonna be taking my position. I don't think I recommended her before that. I wanted someone really good to take over my position. Oh gosh, original sin. Isn't it awful? Isn't it awful? You have to work overtime. That's why I try to explain to people. If you really wanna look at Catholicism, if you wanna really have fun with Catholicism, really practice it. Forget all the stupid stuff you hear all the time, all right? Just really get into the hours. Try to practice the hours. Matins and vespers, compline. I forget what the noonday one is, but whatever that one is, or the morning and evening examination of conscience, I must admit that those are the 2 that I usually do, but I don't have to do all the hours because I'm not religious. I am a lay woman. But yeah, examine your conscience when you wake up, examine your conscience at night. Though actually, usually I examine my conscience at night because I do that. Keep yourself in line. One way we examine our conscience is by going through things like the 7 deadly sins, the 7 virtues, and of course, primarily the 10 commandments and love of God and love of neighbor. Archer Collins says there have been some interesting takes on women's liberty, a lot of it from women. Yes. Precisely. Now, a lot of this has been, if you will, in my circles on the Roman side of the river, but people just made fun of us until they're seeing the fruit now. There is a just form of feminism. For example, the right to vote, the right to enter any profession equally, not having a leg up. But it was the case that women would not be allowed to enter into certain professions. A woman should be able to be a doctor if she wants to be a doctor. A woman should there's no position that should be close to her as long as she is competent. Education. There should be no reason women cannot go into higher education or be educated at all. That's the good side of it. We know what the dark side of it is. Hello. Oh my goodness, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Why do I keep seeing random live streams and watching my own stream? Oh, I have no idea. Archer Collins says, I have a problem with the concept of original sin in that it basically says we are all responsible for our distant ancestors' acts over which we had no control. See the see the reparations idiocy. Yes. I follow the Lotus Eaters podcast, and they often have some interesting takes on these concepts. Interesting. Well, original sin is a state of being. It's not that we're responsible for what others did. The whole you cannot be responsible for the sins of your father. It's that we are born into a fallen world, which makes us as we are. So we have the tendency towards sin, concupiscence. There is not an actual price that we pay for somebody else's sin. We are not responsible for that. It's a state of being. Point taken, though. Point taken. Chris Sands says, I'll be honest, I'm not sure about the voting thing. Women are very easily manipulated and guilted into being pawns. That is true. Yeah, so maybe it was a mistake. Men can be as well, though. Look at all the stupid men out there. But yes, women maybe haven't always been our friends to each other. But then again, if you've been fed a lie from birth, it's really hard to break out of that. I mean, one of the reasons why it's so important to me, because look at all these men who are pro-choice. Believe it or not, men are very tend to be, not all. I wonder why men are so pro-abortion. Gee, I just can't imagine. And one of the myths, of course, is that women are all pro-abortion. Actually, at least in America, that is not the case at all. So, looking at our current president, I would not be able to vote against him. Okay. He's sitting there speaking for me. Hell no, you don't speak for me. But if I didn't have the vote, I would not be able to voice against him. The argument's also, well, your brother can vote for you. Well, what if your brother doesn't vote, or husband? What if they don't vote the way you want to? What if your husband's a jerk? Though why are you married to a jerk? I don't know. But or what if you don't have a husband? Your husband dies. Or what if you don't have a husband at all? You've never been married. Then you don't have a vote. Oh, my brother will vote for me. Well, my brother's a dork. Point taken. Archer Collins says, but then I have some views on the whole forbidden fruit and who is responsible. Oh, well, Satan was responsible. And Adam and Eve were equally responsible. It is been a misinterpretation that it was all Eve's fault. Because even in the New Testament, they don't call it the sin of Eve. They call it the sin of Adam. And that's why Jesus is the new Adam. Archer Collins says, are you saying that your current president is an argument for abortion? No. I'm saying it's an argument for women having the vote. I think you're joking. Yeah. Yes. My gosh. No. That's also the hard part of living by code. You can't do evil so that good may result. Sorry, but if God is all-knowing, he must have been aware of what would happen. He absolutely was aware. Don't be sorry. You're here to be Catholic explained. Absolutely God knew. God wasn't taken by surprise. He's never taken by surprise. He knew that this was going to be the responsibility of giving them free will. If he wanted to prevent it, he would not have given them free will. There are arguments about all of this. Understand that I'm giving you the Catholic point of view. There will be some outside of the Roman communion, if you will, or I'll say a Protestant, that do have different points of view on it, which I don't ascribe to. I said earlier, I don't know if you were here, that predestination. Nope. We don't believe in predestination. And we also believe in free will. You have free will. And that you are responsible for what you do. Period. No one else. Satan can tempt you theologically, but Satan can't make you do anything. Atomic Ranger for abortion, don't suspicious, don't be suspicious. I'm not entirely sure what you mean. Help me out. Archer Cullen, I agree about voting, but I also have sympathy for the Starship Trooper system. Well, one can be for something hypothetically. Archer Cullen says, my problem is that could even have been prevented. He could, by moving the tree, for example, there is an old axiom of command that you should never give an order that you know won't be obeyed. Yeah. Well, here's the issue. The tree, the fruit, all of that, it is symbolic. It wasn't a literal tree. No one knows what the original sin was. It's told in mythological language. So yeah, if it was just a tree, of course he could have moved it. Service guarantees citizenship. Oh dear. Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Well, and don't we always strive for the ideal when someone is all good? We have laws against murder, but we know murder is going to happen. Great discussion. Gosh, this is why I love all these things. However, since this is called Catholic splaining, you will get Catholic splained. I always give a warning. Archer Collins says, if I were to be cynical, I would say the original sin was disobeying authority. Dun, dun, dun. Maybe. Disobeying original, legitimate authority? My gosh, you are going to make me Catholic explain original sin. You know, I'm going to do a stream on this once I'm done with the 7 deadly sins, because this is a great philosophical question. And again, one that goes beyond necessarily religion. It was definitely something that was gravely against nature. St. Edith Stein writes a lot about it. Or St. Teresa Benedicta of the Cross. That was her religious name when she became a Carmelite. She speculates that on it a great deal of what the exact nature of it was. Gosh darn it, now I'm going to have to read up on it. Oh dear, what if I have to read up on what St. Thomas Aquinas has to say about it? I have read it, but oh my gosh, my head just burst through my nose, because that man will make your head explode. I'm beginning to think I should be in the other arena. I should be in my other reenactment character, Brother Colin. Oh, that's a great character. Well, and you know this, studying Middle Ages stuff, that the Middle Ages was not the horrible, oppressive situation, that there was vigorous debate about this, and it was even encouraged. That's why you have someone like Thomas Aquinas writing 5,000 million pages about it, that they loved debating this stuff. The minutia. Eventually, developed into scholasticism. That's one thing that Luther actually didn't like that. He mocked it, saying, sitting around arguing on how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. That was an expression. It wasn't a literal thing. Meaning, arguing over little things. But are they little? Ha ha ha. I do not think so. Alrighty, well, I'm gonna have to end this. We're gonna be doing breakfast here, and I usually do it in the afternoon, but today I have an incredibly full schedule, and I will be flying tomorrow. So once again, thank you for meditating on avarice as well as a whole bunch of other things here. Okay, give me one more point. Proverbial full disclosure, says Archer Khan. Born and baptized, see Church of England, went to a Church of England school, no longer religious, but I listened to some very interesting lectures on both Old Testament and the early church. Oh, yeah, the early church was very influential in my life and in my decision to become a Roman Catholic. Because guess what? I wasn't Church of England, I was Church of Ireland. And I went to a Church of Ireland school as a kid. And made a decision when I was in my 20s. Because I started studying history and all that. But, we all have our own journey. And no problem. Full disclosures, we don't mind. And a great deal of what I learned from the Church of Ireland, Church of England, is still with me. I mean, Jesus is Jesus. All those Bible stories and reading the Bible, everything. Great stream, says Chrysanth. Archicon says a great course is a source of these things. Yeah. I always say read. Yeah, read. There's nothing, you have nothing to fear from reading anything. Nothing to fear from reading anything. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Archer. Always great to see you. Thank you, Chrysanth. Thank you, Atomic Ranger 76. The name I couldn't pronounce, mea maxima culpa, and everyone that will be listening later and perhaps in the chat, let me know what you think about this. Let me know about avarice and how can you be tempted to avarice and what you can do to counter it. That was a bunch of ands, but that's what happens when I'm speaking extemporaneously. Call me Hiram for short. Oh, okay, for short. Yes, I will. Hiram, thank you. I always get embarrassed if I mispronounce something, so I appreciate that a great deal. Have a great day, everyone. Have a great day, and be certain to to not be controlled by avarice.